What if I told you the one thing stopping you from losing belly fat isn't sugar, isn't carbs, and isn't even calories? Stay with me, because this is the part nobody talks about, and once you hear it, you'll never look at belly fat the same way again. Most people are convinced that belly fat is just about what you eat. So they cut sugar. They cut carbs. They skip desserts. They suffer through bland meals, and still, that stubborn belly fat doesn't move. And that's when frustration kicks in. You start thinking your body is broken, your genetics are bad, or maybe you're just getting older. But the truth is way simpler and way more important than that. The real reason belly fat sticks around for so many people is stress. Not the kind of stress you feel once in a while, but the constant, low-level stress your body lives in every single day. Here's what most people don't realize. Your body doesn't care if your stress comes from work, lack of sleep, overtraining, worrying about money, scrolling on your phone late at night, or even obsessing over dieting. To your body, it's all the same. Stress is stress. And when your body feels stressed for long periods of time, it releases a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is not the enemy. You need it to survive. But when it stays high all the time, it sends a very clear message to your body. Hold on to fat, especially around the belly. That belly fat isn't there because you're weak or undisciplined. It's there because your body thinks it needs protection. And here's the part that really blows people's minds. You can be eating clean. You can be working out. You can be doing everything right. But if your stress levels are constantly high, your body will resist letting go of belly fat no matter how few carbs or sugars you eat. Think about it. Ever notice how your belly feels softer or more bloated when you're overwhelmed? Ever notice how people going through intense stress often gain weight right in the middle, even when their diet hasn't changed? That's cortisol at work. Now let me make this even more real. A lot of people actually increase stress when they try to lose belly fat. They undereat. They overexercise. They beat themselves up for every small mistake. They live in a constant state of pressure, telling themselves they need to try harder. And the body responds by holding on even tighter. This is why doing more isn't always the answer. Sometimes doing less stress, less pressure, less obsession, is what finally allows fat loss to happen. Sleep plays a massive role here too. If you're sleeping 5 or 6 hours a night and relying on caffeine to survive, your cortisol levels stay elevated all day. Your body never gets the signal that it's safe to burn fat. Instead, it stays in survival mode. Another hidden source of stress is always being on. Notifications, emails, social media, constant stimulation. Your nervous system never truly relaxes. Even if you eat perfectly, your body is still operating like it's under attack. So what do you actually do about this? First, stop blaming sugar and carbs for everything. Yes, food quality matters, but it's not the main villain when it comes to stubborn belly fat. Second, start asking yourself one simple question: is my body feeling safe? Because fat loss doesn't happen when your body feels threatened. It happens when your body feels calm, rested, and supported. This means prioritizing sleep like it's non-negotiable. It means moving your body in a way that feels good instead of punishing. It means taking breaks, slowing down, breathing deeply, and giving your nervous system a chance to reset. Even something as simple as walking outside, getting sunlight, or spending a few minutes away from your phone can lower cortisol. And when cortisol goes down, belly fat finally gets the message that it doesn't need to stay anymore. Here's the biggest mindset shift I want you to take away from this. Belly fat is not your enemy. It's a signal. It's your body communicating that it's under too much stress. When you listen to that signal instead of fighting it, everything changes. So if you've been cutting carbs, avoiding sugar, and still struggling, don't quit. Just stop attacking your body and start supporting it. Fat loss is not about punishment. It's about balance. And once you fix the stress, the belly fat that felt impossible to lose finally starts to fade. Most people have been taught to believe that belly fat is mainly caused by sugar, carbs, or calories, and that belief shapes almost every decision they make about food and fitness. From the moment someone decides they want a flatter stomach, the first instinct is usually to cut something out. Sugar becomes the enemy. Bread becomes forbidden. Rice, pasta, fruit, even certain vegetables start to feel dangerous. Calories are counted, meals are skipped, and enjoyment around food slowly disappears. And yet, for so many people, the belly fat remains exactly where it is. This is where the confusion starts, because if sugar and carbs were truly the main cause, removing them should solve the problem. But it often doesn't. The idea that belly fat comes from eating too many carbs or too much sugar is simple, and simple ideas spread fast. They give people something clear to blame and something easy to control. But the human body is not that simple. Belly fat is not just stored energy from food. It is deeply connected to hormones, the nervous system, and how safe or unsafe the body feels on a daily basis. When people focus only on sugar and carbs, they miss the bigger picture of what's actually happening inside their body. You can see this play out everywhere. Two people can eat the same foods, the same amount of calories, and exercise the same way, yet one struggles with stubborn belly fat while the other doesn't. If sugar or carbs were the main cause, their bodies would respond the same way. But they don't, because belly fat is influenced by more than just food intake. It's influenced by stress, sleep, emotional pressure, and the constant demands placed on the body and mind. Many people who are desperate to lose belly fat are already doing too much. They're restricting food, pushing through intense workouts, and living in a constant state of pressure to look a certain way. They may have already cut sugar and carbs down to the bare minimum, yet their belly remains soft, bloated, or resistant. This leads them to believe they need even more discipline, even more restriction, when in reality that approach is often making the problem worse. The body does not store belly fat simply because it has excess fuel. It stores belly fat because it's responding to signals. One of the strongest signals is stress. When the body senses ongoing stress, it prioritizes survival over appearance. Belly fat becomes a protective reserve, a safety buffer. It's not about indulgence or lack of willpower. It's about the body adapting to what it believes is a threatening environment. This is why someone can eat very little sugar and still struggle. It's why someone can go low carb for months and see no change in their midsection. Food choices matter, but they are not the main driver in this specific issue. When people focus only on sugar and carbs, they end up fighting their body instead of understanding it. They see belly fat as proof that they're doing something wrong, instead of seeing it as feedback from their system. Another overlooked part of this belief is how it affects behavior. When people blame sugar and carbs, they often develop fear around food. Eating becomes stressful. Social situations become difficult. Guilt creeps in after meals. That mental stress alone can contribute to the very problem they're trying to solve. The irony is that the more someone obsesses over avoiding sugar and carbs, the more stressed their body becomes, and the more likely it is to hold on to belly fat. There are also countless examples of people who eat carbs regularly, even sugar occasionally, and still have very little belly fat. They're not special. They're not lucky. Their bodies simply feel safe. Their nervous systems are regulated. They sleep well, manage stress better, and don't live in constant fight or flight mode. Their bodies don't feel the need to protect themselves by storing fat around the abdomen. When you remove the fear-based narrative around sugar and carbs, it opens the door to a more realistic understanding of fat loss. Instead of asking, "What food do I need to cut next?" the question becomes, "What is my body responding to?" This shift alone can change everything. It moves the focus away from punishment and restriction and toward support and balance. Belly fat has been unfairly demonized, just like sugar and carbs have. But none of these things exist in isolation. The body doesn't operate on food math alone. It operates on signals, patterns, and long-term conditions. A single dessert doesn't create belly fat, just like removing all sugar doesn't automatically remove it. What matters more is what the body experiences day after day. When people finally understand that sugar and carbs are not the main cause, they often feel relief. Relief because it means they're not broken. Relief because it means they don't have to live in constant restriction. Relief because it means there's another path forward that doesn't involve suffering. That realization alone can reduce stress, which is already a step in the right direction. This doesn't mean food choices don't matter at all. It means they matter in context. A body that feels calm, rested, and supported can handle carbs and sugar very differently than a body that's exhausted and overwhelmed. The same foods can lead to completely different outcomes depending on the internal state of the person eating them. When you stop blaming sugar and carbs, You stop chasing extremes. You stop jumping from one diet to the next, hoping the next rule will finally crack the code. Instead, you start paying attention to sleep, recovery, emotional load, and how hard you're pushing yourself every day. You begin to notice that belly fat isn't just about what's on your plate, but about what's happening in your life, your mind, and your body all at once. And once that awareness sets in, the conversation around belly fat naturally shifts away from fear and restriction toward understanding and patience and listening to what the body has been trying to communicate all along. One of the most common mistakes people make when trying to lose belly fat is believing that the solution is simply to cut food harder and harder. If a little restriction doesn't work, they assume more restriction must be the answer. Fewer meals, smaller portions, skipped breakfasts, cutting snacks, cutting entire food groups, and constantly trying to eat less than the day before. On the surface, it sounds logical. Eat less, lose fat. But the human body doesn't respond well to being pushed into extremes, especially for long periods of time. At first, cutting food may seem to work. The scale might drop, clothes may feel slightly looser, and motivation goes up. But over time, progress slows down or completely stalls, and belly fat is usually the first place that refuses to change. This is where frustration sets in, because people feel like they're doing everything they're supposed to do. They're hungry, tired, and disciplined, yet their midsection looks the same or even worse. The problem is that aggressive food restriction sends a very strong signal to the body that resources are scarce. From a survival perspective, this is not a signal that encourages fat loss. It's a signal that encourages conservation. The body adapts by slowing metabolism, increasing hunger hormones, and holding on to fat stores, especially around the belly where fat is easiest to access in an emergency. This is not a flaw. It's a protective response that has kept humans alive for thousands of years. When someone repeatedly cuts food, the body doesn't see it as a temporary diet. It sees it as a potential threat. Over time, this creates internal stress. Stress hormones rise, energy levels drop, and recovery becomes harder. Even if calories are low, the body becomes more efficient at storing what it gets. This is why people can eat very little and still struggle with belly fat. The issue isn't effort. It's the signal being sent. Another issue with cutting food harder is that it often leads to cycles of restriction and overeating. Someone restricts all week, white-knuckling their way through hunger, only to break down on the weekend or at night. This isn't a lack of discipline. It's biology pushing back. And every cycle reinforces the idea that the body can't be trusted, which increases mental stress around food even more. Mental stress matters more than most people realize. Constantly thinking about food, calories, and rules keeps the nervous system on high alert. Even if food intake is low, the body is not relaxed. A stressed body does not prioritize fat loss. It prioritizes survival. Belly fat, once again, becomes a safety net. Cutting food harder also affects sleep, often without people noticing. Hunger disrupts sleep quality. Low energy leads to more caffeine. Poor sleep increases cravings and raises stress hormones the next day. This creates a loop where someone eats less, sleeps worse, feels more stressed, and sees less progress. Belly fat thrives in this environment. There's also the issue of muscle loss. When food intake is too low for too long, the body may break down muscle tissue to meet energy needs. Muscle is metabolically active and helps regulate blood sugar and hormones. Losing muscle can make the body look softer and more inflamed, especially around the midsection. So, even if weight goes down, belly fat may appear more prominent. Many people confuse doing less with being lazy, but there's a difference between supporting the body and depriving it. Supporting the body means giving it enough fuel to feel safe, stable, and capable. Depriving the body creates tension and resistance. Fat loss is not something you can force indefinitely. It's something the body allows when conditions are right. A well-fed body that feels secure will often burn fat more efficiently than a starved body that feels threatened. This is counterintuitive, which is why so many people struggle. They believe suffering is required for results. But suffering creates stress, and stress blocks the very outcome they want. There are countless examples of people who increase their food intake slightly, reduce extreme dieting behaviors, and suddenly see belly fat start to shift. This isn't magic. It's the body responding to a safer environment. When energy availability improves, hormones begin to normalize. Hunger becomes more manageable. Sleep improves. Stress levels come down. And with that, fat loss becomes possible again. Cutting food harder also narrows a person's focus. Life becomes about avoiding hunger instead of enjoying movement, rest, and balance. This creates burnout. Burnout leads to quitting. And quitting reinforces the belief that nothing works. In reality, the approach was the problem, not the person. Belly fat is often the last place to go because it's tied to survival. When the body feels uncertain about the future, it protects that area. No amount of force can override that response long-term. You can only change it by changing the signal. Eating enough doesn't mean overeating. It means fueling the body consistently, respecting hunger cues, and removing the constant threat of deprivation. It means understanding that progress doesn't always come from doing more or eating less, but from creating conditions where the body doesn't feel like it has to fight back. When people stop cutting food harder and start nourishing themselves properly, something shifts. Food becomes less stressful. Energy becomes more stable. Workouts feel better. Recovery improves. And slowly, without obsession, the body begins to let go of what it was holding on to, because it no longer feels like it has to protect itself from scarcity or stress or constant pressure to survive. Chronic stress is one of the most overlooked reasons belly fat refuses to budge, yet it quietly shapes how the body responds to everything else you do. Most people don't even realize how stressed they truly are, because stress has become normal. Waking up tired, rushing through the day, constantly thinking about responsibilities, scrolling late at night, pushing through workouts even when exhausted, and worrying about results all blend into daily life. The body doesn't see this as normal, though. It experiences it as a constant demand to stay alert and prepared for danger. Unlike short bursts of stress, which the body can handle and recover from, chronic stress never gives the system a chance to reset. There is no clear beginning or end. The body remains switched on, tense, and reactive. Over time, this becomes the baseline state. When this happens, the body prioritizes survival over optimization. Fat loss, especially from the belly, is no longer a priority because the body believes it needs reserves to stay safe. The body responds to chronic stress by activating the stress response over and over again. This response was designed to help humans escape immediate threats, not to be active all day, every day. When stress never turns off, the body adapts in ways that protect it from perceived danger. One of those adaptations is holding onto fat, particularly around the abdomen where vital organs are located. Belly fat becomes a form of armor, not a reflection of laziness or lack of discipline. What makes chronic stress so powerful is that it doesn't have to feel intense to be damaging. It can be quiet and constant. Worrying about finances, feeling pressure to perform, trying to meet unrealistic expectations, constantly thinking about food, weight, or appearance. Even trying too hard to be healthy can become a source of stress. The body doesn't differentiate between emotional stress and physical stress. It only knows that something isn't letting it relax. Many people assume that if they're eating well and exercising, stress shouldn't matter. But stress can override even the best diet. A body under constant stress becomes resistant to change. It doesn't trust that conditions are stable enough to let go of stored energy. This is why someone can follow a perfect plan and still see no change in belly fat. The missing piece isn't effort, it's recovery and safety. Chronic stress also disrupts internal balance in subtle ways. It affects digestion, making the gut more sensitive and prone to bloating. It alters hunger signals, causing cravings or loss of appetite at unpredictable times. It interferes with sleep, preventing deep, restorative rest. Each of these effects feeds back into the stress cycle, making it harder for the body to calm down. And as long as the body stays in this loop, belly fat remains protected. Another hidden impact of chronic stress is how it shapes behavior. When stressed, people tend to move less throughout the day, even if they're exercising intensely for short periods. They may fidget less, take fewer relaxed walks, and sit more rigidly. Stress also reduces patience and self-compassion, making people more likely to criticize themselves for not seeing results. This self-criticism becomes another form of stress layered on top of everything else. The body doesn't respond well to being constantly judged or pushed. It responds to consistency, predictability, and calm signals. Chronic stress removes all three. Every day feels urgent. Every decision feels heavy. Even rest feels unproductive. When rest feels unsafe, the body never truly recovers. One of the reasons belly fat is so tied to stress is because the abdomen is deeply connected to the nervous system. It's where many stress-related sensations are felt first. Tightness in the stomach, knots in the gut, shallow breathing. These are physical signs that the body is under pressure. Over time, fat accumulation in this area becomes part of that stress pattern. People often try to fix chronic stress by adding more control, more structure, and more rules. But control itself can become stressful when it's driven by fear. The body doesn't need perfection. It needs reassurance. It needs signals that say it's okay to slow down, okay to rest, and okay to let go. Chronic stress also distorts time perception. Everything feels rushed. Meals are eaten quickly. Sleep is delayed. Breaks are skipped. Even weekends are filled with obligations. Without pauses, the body never receives the message that the threat has passed. Belly fat stays because the body is still waiting for safety. Reducing chronic stress doesn't mean removing all challenges from life. It means changing how the body experiences those challenges. It means allowing moments of calm, even small ones, to exist consistently. It means valuing sleep, breathing deeply, moving gently when needed, and not treating rest as a reward that must be earned. When chronic stress begins to ease, subtle changes appear first. Digestion improves. Sleep becomes deeper. Energy feels steadier. The body starts to feel less reactive. These changes are often ignored because they're not dramatic, but they're powerful signals that the nervous system is shifting. And when the nervous system shifts, the body's priorities shift with it. Belly fat doesn't disappear the moment stress decreases, but the resistance softens. The body becomes more willing to change. It no longer feels like it has to defend itself against constant pressure. Over time, with consistent signals of safety and balance, the body releases what it no longer needs to protect, because the environment no longer feels like a threat that requires constant vigilance or stored energy to survive. Cortisol is one of the most misunderstood hormones when it comes to belly fat, yet it plays a central role in why the body stores fat around the abdomen during times of stress. Cortisol itself is not bad or harmful. In fact, it's essential for survival. It helps regulate blood sugar, blood pressure, inflammation, and energy availability. The problem isn't cortisol existing, it's cortisol staying elevated for too long. When cortisol becomes chronically high, it sends a very specific message to the body, and that message is to protect, conserve, and store energy rather than release it. When cortisol rises, the body prepares for a perceived threat. This threat doesn't have to be physical danger. It can be emotional pressure, lack of sleep, undereating, overtraining, constant worrying, or even the stress of trying too hard to be healthy. Cortisol tells the body that something is wrong and that resources might be needed soon. One of the easiest ways for the body to prepare is by holding on to fat, particularly in the belly area where energy can be accessed quickly if needed. The abdominal region is especially sensitive to cortisol because it contains a high number of cortisol receptors. This means belly fat responds more strongly to stress signals than fat stored elsewhere. When cortisol is elevated, fat storage in this area becomes more likely. This is why people under long-term stress often notice weight gain primarily around their midsection, even if their eating habits haven't changed much. Cortisol also affects how the body handles blood sugar. When cortisol is high, the body releases more glucose into the bloodstream to provide quick energy. If this energy isn't used, insulin levels rise to manage that blood sugar. Over time, this combination makes the body more efficient at storing fat, especially visceral fat around the organs. This process happens quietly and gradually, which is why people are often confused about where the belly fat came from. Another important aspect of cortisol is how it interacts with other hormones. High cortisol can suppress hormones involved in muscle building, repair, and fat burning. It can interfere with thyroid function, which affects metabolism. It can disrupt hunger and fullness signals, making people feel either constantly hungry or strangely disconnected from hunger cues. All of these effects push the body toward holding on to fat rather than letting it go. Many people unknowingly raise their cortisol levels through habits they believe are helping them. Skipping meals, excessive fasting, intense workouts without recovery, and very low-calorie diets all place stress on the body. From the body's perspective, these behaviors signal danger and scarcity. Cortisol rises to help cope with that stress, and belly fat storage becomes part of the coping mechanism. Sleep deprivation is another powerful driver of cortisol. When sleep is short or poor in quality, cortisol remains elevated the next day. This keeps the body in a heightened state of alertness. Even if someone eats well and exercises, high cortisol from lack of sleep can block fat loss. The body doesn't prioritize change when it's exhausted. It prioritizes staying functional. Cortisol also responds to mental and emotional stress just as strongly as physical stress. Constant self-criticism, anxiety about body image, pressure to achieve results, and fear of gaining weight all activate the stress response. Thinking about food all day, obsessing over calories, or feeling guilty after meals keeps cortisol elevated. This creates a situation where the effort to lose belly fat actually contributes to the hormone that prevents it. One of the most frustrating aspects of cortisol-driven belly fat is that it doesn't respond well to force. Eating less, training harder, and pushing more aggressively often raise cortisol even further. This creates a cycle where increased effort leads to increased stress, which leads to more resistance from the body. The person feels stuck, even though they're doing more than ever. Cortisol was never meant to be constantly active. It's designed to rise briefly and then fall once the threat is gone. In modern life, threats don't end. Emails, deadlines, notifications, financial concerns, and social pressures keep cortisol elevated throughout the day. The body never receives the signal that it's safe to relax. Belly fat becomes a long-term adaptation to this environment. Lowering cortisol doesn't require eliminating all stress, which is unrealistic. It requires changing how the body experiences stress. Consistent meals, adequate calories, quality sleep, gentle movement, and moments of relaxation all help signal safety. When cortisol levels begin to stabilize, the body gradually shifts out of survival mode. As cortisol comes down, other hormones regain balance. Blood sugar regulation improves. Inflammation decreases. The nervous system becomes less reactive. The body becomes more willing to release stored energy because it no longer feels like it needs to prepare for constant danger. Belly fat, which once served as protection, becomes unnecessary. Understanding cortisol changes the entire conversation around belly fat. It reframes the issue from one of willpower to one of biology. The body isn't holding fat out of stubbornness. It's responding intelligently to the signals it receives. When those signals shift from stress and threat to safety and stability, the body responds accordingly in its own time and in its own way. The idea that the body holds belly fat as a form of protection changes everything about how we understand weight loss and body composition. Most people see belly fat as something that shouldn't be there, something wrong, something that needs to be fought against. But from the body's perspective, belly fat is not a mistake. It's a response. It's a strategy. It exists because the body believes it needs extra protection to survive the conditions it's experiencing. The abdomen is a vulnerable area. It houses vital organs that are essential for survival. When the body senses ongoing stress, uncertainty, or instability, it prioritizes protecting this region. Belly fat acts like a cushion, an energy reserve, and a shield. It's the body saying, "I don't feel safe enough to let this go yet." This is not a conscious decision. It's a deeply ingrained biological response that has been shaped over thousands of years. In times of danger or scarcity, storing fat around the belly increased the chances of survival. That same mechanism still exists today, even though the threats are different. The body doesn't know the difference between a predator and a demanding job, between famine and chronic dieting, between physical danger and emotional pressure. All it knows is that it's under stress, and it responds accordingly. This is why belly fat often appears or increases during stressful periods of life. Breakups, financial strain, lack of sleep, burnout, illness, or intense pressure to perform can all trigger this protective response. The body shifts into a mode where safety becomes more important than aesthetics. Holding on to belly fat becomes a way to ensure energy is available if things get worse. Many people try to remove belly fat by attacking it. They tighten control over food, punish themselves with harder workouts, and constantly criticize their appearance. From the body's perspective, this feels like more threat, not less. The environment becomes even more hostile. Instead of letting go of protection, the body doubles down on it. Protection doesn't only mean physical safety. It also includes emotional and psychological safety. When someone feels judged, rushed, unsupported, or constantly pressured, the body stays on guard. Even if everything looks fine on the outside, the internal environment feels unstable. Belly fat becomes part of how the body copes with that instability. This protective mechanism is why belly fat can be so stubborn. It's not just stored energy waiting to be burned. It's tied to the body's perception of risk. Until that perception changes, the body resists releasing it. This resistance isn't defiance. It's self-preservation. People often notice that when life becomes calmer, belly fat shifts without extreme effort. Better sleep, less pressure, improved emotional well-being, and a sense of stability can change the body in ways that strict dieting never could. This isn't coincidence. It's the body responding to a safer environment. Another important part of this protection is predictability. The body thrives on routine and consistency. When eating patterns are chaotic, when sleep schedules are irregular, and when stress levels spike unpredictably, the body prepares for uncertainty. Holding on to belly fat is a way to create internal stability when external stability is lacking. This also explains why yo-yo dieting often leads to increased belly fat over time. Each cycle of restriction and regain reinforces the idea that food availability is unpredictable. The body learns that it can't trust consistency. As a result, it becomes more protective with each cycle, especially around the midsection. Belly fat is also closely linked to the nervous system. When the nervous system is stuck in a fight-or-flight state, the body is constantly preparing for action. This state is not compatible with fat loss. Fat loss requires rest, repair, and a sense of safety. Protection requires vigilance and conservation. People who have experienced long-term stress often describe feeling tense in their abdomen. Shallow breathing, tightness, discomfort, and bloating are common. These sensations are signs that the body is guarding itself. Fat accumulation in this area becomes part of that guarding behavior. Understanding belly fat as protection removes shame from the conversation. It shifts the focus away from blame and toward curiosity. Instead of asking why the body won't cooperate, the question becomes what the body is trying to protect itself from. That question opens the door to real change. Protection can come from many sources. Emotional overload, unresolved trauma, lack of rest, constant self-judgment, and even fear of failure can all signal danger to the body. The body responds the same way regardless of the source. It holds on. Trying to force the body to release protection rarely works. The body doesn't respond to force with compliance. It responds with resistance. Safety has to be felt, not demanded. When the body begins to feel supported, nourished, and allowed to rest, the need for protection decreases. This doesn't mean life has to be perfect for belly fat to change. It means the body needs enough signals of safety to outweigh the signals of threat. Small, consistent actions matter more than dramatic efforts. Regular meals, adequate sleep, gentle movement, and moments of calm all tell the body that it's okay to relax. As the body relaxes, it no longer needs to guard the abdomen so fiercely. The protective layer becomes less necessary. Fat that once served a purpose starts to feel redundant to the system. The body lets go when it believes it can afford to. Seeing belly fat through this lens transforms the relationship people have with their bodies. It replaces frustration with understanding. It replaces punishment with support. The body is no longer an enemy to defeat, but a system trying to keep itself alive in the best way it knows how under the conditions it's given. One of the most frustrating experiences for anyone trying to lose belly fat is doing everything they've been told is right and still seeing no change. Eating clean, avoiding junk food, choosing whole ingredients, drinking plenty of water, and sticking to a structured routine should work. Yet for many people it doesn't. This leads to confusion and self-doubt, because if clean eating is supposed to fix the problem, why is the belly still there? The missing piece in this situation is stress, and without addressing it, even the cleanest diet can fail to produce results. Clean eating often focuses on food quality, but it doesn't automatically mean the body is in a state that allows fat loss. A person can eat organic vegetables, lean proteins, and healthy fats and still be under intense physical and emotional stress. The body responds to that stress first, before it responds to food quality. From the body's perspective, safety matters more than nutrition. If the body doesn't feel safe, it won't prioritize releasing stored fat. Many people who eat clean are also very strict with themselves. Meals are planned meticulously. Certain foods are labeled as bad. Deviations create guilt. Social events become stressful. This constant vigilance around food creates mental strain. Even though the food itself is healthy, the experience of eating becomes stressful, and that stress sends a stronger signal to the body than the nutrients on the plate. Stress also changes how the body processes clean foods. Under stress, digestion becomes less efficient. Nutrient absorption can suffer. The gut becomes more sensitive, leading to bloating and discomfort that make the belly appear larger. This can happen even when eating foods that are considered ideal. The body simply isn't in a relaxed state where it can fully utilize what it's given. Another common issue is that clean eating often turns into undereating without people realizing it. Removing processed foods and snacks can drastically reduce calorie intake. While this may seem beneficial at first, it can create energy scarcity. The body perceives this as a threat, especially when combined with a busy or demanding lifestyle. Stress hormones rise, and fat loss slows down or stops altogether. Exercise can add another layer to this problem. Many people who eat clean also train hard. They push through intense workouts, rarely take rest days, and believe more effort will lead to better results. Without enough recovery, exercise becomes another stressor. The combination of clean eating, underfueling, and overtraining keeps the body in a constant state of alertness. In this state, belly fat becomes protected. Sleep is often compromised as well. People trying to do everything perfectly may stay up late planning meals, working, or scrolling for health advice. Poor sleep raises stress levels and disrupts hormonal balance. Even the best diet cannot override the effects of chronic sleep deprivation. The body simply doesn't have the capacity to let go of fat when it's exhausted. Clean eating can also create a sense of pressure to maintain control at all times. This pressure doesn't turn off. The body feels it as ongoing stress. It doesn't matter that the food is healthy. What matters is the emotional tone surrounding food. When eating feels like a test you must pass every day, the body remains tense. There are many examples of people who loosen their grip on strict clean eating and suddenly see changes in their body. They eat a wider variety of foods, fuel themselves more consistently, and remove the fear around eating. Stress levels drop. Digestion improves. Sleep improves. And with those changes, belly fat begins to shift. This doesn't mean clean food was the problem. It means stress was blocking the benefits of that food. The body is not a machine that responds only to inputs like calories and macros. It is a responsive system that constantly assesses its environment. Clean food is a positive signal, but it can be overshadowed by negative signals like pressure, fear, exhaustion, and self-criticism. When those negative signals dominate, fat loss becomes secondary. Another overlooked factor is that clean eating often becomes an identity. People feel they must live up to a certain standard. Any deviation feels like failure. This creates internal conflict. The body feels this conflict as stress. Even moments of enjoyment can trigger guilt, keeping the nervous system activated. Belly fat is particularly sensitive to this kind of stress because it's tied to survival mechanisms. The body doesn't care how healthy the food is if it believes the environment is demanding or unstable. It will hold on to protection regardless of how clean the diet looks on paper. This is why focusing only on food quality is incomplete. Clean eating works best when paired with calm, consistency, and self-compassion. When meals are eaten without fear. When hunger is respected. When rest is valued. When exercise supports energy instead of draining it. Stress doesn't cancel out clean eating, but it can overpower it. The body listens to the strongest signal. If stress is loud and constant, it becomes the dominant message. Fat loss waits until that message softens. Understanding this helps people stop blaming themselves when clean eating doesn't work. It shifts the focus from trying harder to feeling safer, from control to balance. When stress is reduced, clean eating can finally do what it's meant to do: nourish the body, support hormonal balance, and create an environment where the body feels comfortable enough to release what it no longer needs to hold on to. Overexercising and undereating are often praised as signs of dedication, but together they create one of the strongest barriers to losing belly fat. Many people believe that if they just train harder and eat less, their body will eventually give in. What actually happens is the opposite. The body interprets this combination as a threat, not a solution, and responds by holding on tighter to fat, especially around the midsection. When exercise becomes excessive, it stops being a positive stimulus and starts acting like a stressor. Intense workouts demand recovery. They require fuel, rest, and time for the body to adapt. When those needs aren't met, the body remains in a damaged, alert state. Add undereating on top of that, and the body receives two strong messages at once. Energy is being burned rapidly, and energy is not being replaced. From a survival standpoint, this is alarming. The body doesn't know you're trying to look better. It only knows that you're expending a lot of energy while providing very little in return. This creates internal stress, and stress hormones rise to keep you functioning. These hormones help mobilize energy in the short term, but over time they encourage fat storage, particularly in the belly where it can be accessed quickly if needed. Many people fall into this pattern without realizing it. They wake up early to train, push through fatigue, skip meals or eat very lightly, and repeat the cycle day after day. They may feel proud of their discipline, but internally their body is struggling to keep up. Energy levels dip, mood becomes unstable, sleep quality declines, and recovery slows. Belly fat becomes stubborn not because effort is lacking, but because the body is overwhelmed. Undereating plays a major role in this resistance. When calorie intake is too low, the body adapts by becoming more efficient. Metabolic processes slow down. Non-essential functions are reduced. Fat loss is considered non-essential when survival feels uncertain. The body chooses preservation over change. At the same time, overexercising increases inflammation and physical stress. Muscles don't fully recover. The nervous system stays activated. Instead of switching between effort and rest, the body stays stuck in effort mode. This constant strain signals danger. Belly fat becomes part of the body's defense system in response to that danger. Another issue is that intense training while underfueled often leads to muscle loss. Muscle tissue requires energy to maintain. When energy is scarce, the body may break down muscle to meet its needs. Losing muscle reduces metabolic flexibility and makes the body appear softer, particularly around the midsection. So, even though someone is training hard, their body composition may move in the opposite direction. This pattern also affects hormones that regulate hunger and fullness. Undereating disrupts these signals, leading to intense cravings or loss of appetite at unpredictable times. The mental effort to control food intake becomes exhausting. Food thoughts increase. This mental strain adds another layer of stress, reinforcing the cycle. Overexercising and undereating can also disconnect people from their body's signals. Hunger is ignored. Fatigue is dismissed. Pain is pushed through. Over time, this disconnect makes it harder to recognize when the body needs rest or nourishment. The body, feeling unheard, responds by protecting itself. Many people believe that rest days or eating more will set them back. In reality, those are often the missing pieces. The body doesn't change when it's constantly being pushed. It changes when it has the chance to recover and adapt. Without recovery, effort turns into strain, and strain turns into resistance. There are countless cases where people reduce training intensity, increase food intake slightly, and suddenly see belly fat begin to shift. This doesn't mean they stopped caring. It means they started listening. The body responded to the message that it was no longer under constant attack. This shift often feels uncomfortable at first because it challenges deeply held beliefs about discipline and worth. Many people tie their self-esteem to how hard they work and how little they eat. Letting go of that identity can feel scary. But the body doesn't respond to punishment. It responds to support. Overexercising and undereating also limit long-term consistency. Burnout becomes inevitable. Injuries appear. Motivation drops. When the process is unsustainable, results rarely last. Belly fat, which is closely tied to stress and survival, remains as a reminder that the body is not coping well with the demands placed on it. True progress comes from balance. Training that challenges without destroying. Eating that fuels without excess. Rest that allows repair. When these elements align, the body feels safe enough to let go of stored protection. The hardest part for many people is trusting that less force can lead to better results. But once the body feels adequately fueled and allowed to recover, it stops fighting back. Energy improves. Sleep deepens. Stress levels fall. And the belly fat that once seemed impossible to lose gradually becomes unnecessary for survival and begins to fade as the body no longer feels the need to protect itself from constant strain or scarcity. Poor sleep is one of the most underestimated reasons belly fat refuses to go away, even for people who eat well and exercise regularly. Many see sleep as optional, something that can be sacrificed in the name of productivity or discipline. But the body does not see sleep that way. Sleep is when the body repairs, regulates hormones, and resets the nervous system. When sleep is short or inconsistent, the body stays in a stress state, and that stress directly affects fat storage, especially around the belly. When sleep is inadequate, the body produces more stress hormones the next day to keep you functioning. This creates a constant background tension. Even if you don't feel anxious, your body is working harder just to get through the day. This heightened state makes fat loss a low priority. The body believes it needs to conserve energy, not spend it. Sleep deprivation also disrupts hormones that regulate hunger and fullness. Signals that tell you when you're satisfied become weaker, while signals that drive hunger become stronger. This isn't a lack of willpower. It's the body trying to compensate for the energy deficit caused by poor sleep. Even when calorie intake doesn't increase dramatically, the internal environment becomes less favorable for fat loss. Another effect of poor sleep is how it changes food choices. When tired, the brain seeks quick energy. Cravings increase. Decision-making weakens. Even people committed to clean eating notice it's harder to stay consistent when they're exhausted. This adds guilt and frustration, which further increases stress. Belly fat thrives in this cycle. Sleep also plays a crucial role in how the body responds to exercise. Training places stress on the body, and sleep is when adaptation happens. Without enough sleep, workouts become another source of strain rather than a tool for improvement. Muscles don't recover fully. Inflammation lingers. The nervous system remains activated. Instead of becoming fitter and leaner, the body becomes more protective. Many people try to compensate for poor sleep with caffeine. While caffeine can provide temporary alertness, it also keeps stress hormones elevated. This makes it harder for the body to relax later, perpetuating the sleep problem. The body stays in a loop of stimulation and exhaustion, never fully resetting. Poor sleep also affects insulin sensitivity. When the body is tired, it becomes less efficient at handling blood sugar. This can promote fat storage, even if food intake remains the same. The belly area is particularly sensitive to these changes, which is why sleep-deprived people often notice weight gain or bloating around the midsection. Another overlooked aspect of sleep is timing and consistency. Irregular sleep schedules confuse the body. Going to bed late some nights and early on others disrupts internal rhythms. The body thrives on predictability. When that predictability is missing, stress increases. Belly fat becomes part of the body's response to that instability. Sleep deprivation also reduces patience and emotional resilience. Small challenges feel bigger. Self-criticism increases. Motivation feels forced. This emotional strain feeds back into physical stress. The body doesn't separate emotional fatigue from physical fatigue. It responds to both by protecting itself. Many people don't connect their belly fat struggles to sleep because the effects are gradual. Missing an hour or two of sleep doesn't cause immediate weight gain, but over weeks and months, the accumulation matters. The body slowly adapts to the lack of rest by prioritizing survival. Restful sleep sends a powerful signal of safety to the body. It tells the nervous system that it's okay to power down. It allows hormones to rebalance. It supports recovery from daily stressors. Without this signal, the body remains guarded. People who improve their sleep often notice changes before the scale moves. They feel calmer. Hunger feels more manageable. Energy becomes steadier. These are signs that the body is shifting out of survival mode. Fat loss follows this shift, not the other way around. Sleep is not a luxury. It's a foundation. Without it, even the best nutrition and training plan struggles to work. The body cannot let go of protection when it's exhausted. Belly fat stays because the body is trying to cope with ongoing sleep deprivation. Creating better sleep doesn't require perfection. Small changes matter. Going to bed earlier more often. Reducing late-night stimulation. Allowing the mind to unwind. Treating sleep as essential rather than optional. Each of these actions tells the body that recovery matters. When sleep becomes consistent and restorative, the body finally gets the chance to relax. Stress hormones decrease. Metabolic processes become more efficient. The nervous system resets. In this state, the body no longer feels the need to hold on to excess protection, and the belly fat that once felt stubborn begins to loosen its grip as the body recognizes that it is safe to rest, recover, and function without constant vigilance or exhaustion. One of the most invisible sources of stress in modern life is the feeling of always being on. Notifications, messages, emails, news updates, social media, and constant digital stimulation keep the nervous system in a state of alertness from the moment we wake up until we fall asleep. Even when the body is physically still, the mind is rarely at rest. This continuous stimulation may not feel like stress in the traditional sense, but the body experiences it as a demand to stay vigilant, and that vigilance directly affects belly fat. The nervous system was never designed to process endless information without breaks. Each notification, even a harmless one, triggers a small stress response. Over time, these responses add up. The body remains in a low-grade fight-or-flight state, scanning for what needs attention next. This state doesn't allow for deep relaxation, and without relaxation, the body doesn't feel safe enough to let go of stored energy. Being constantly connected also disrupts natural rhythms. People check their phones first thing in the morning, immediately activating the mind before the body has a chance to ease into the day. Late at night, screens keep the brain stimulated when it should be winding down. This pattern interferes with sleep quality, which further increases stress hormones and reinforces fat storage around the belly. The problem isn't just the devices themselves, but the sense of urgency they create. There's always something to respond to, something to check, something to catch up on. This keeps the mind forward-focused and reactive. The body mirrors this mental state by staying tense. Belly fat becomes part of how the body protects itself in an environment that never truly pauses. Safety is built through consistency. Regular meals that prevent extreme hunger. Sleep that allows full recovery. Movement that energizes instead of exhausts. Predictable routines that reduce uncertainty. These things may seem simple, but they are powerful biological signals. Emotional safety matters just as much as physical safety. Feeling supported. Feeling allowed to slow down. Feeling free from constant self-judgment. When people stop treating their body like a problem to fix and start treating it like a system to support, resistance softens. One of the clearest signs that the body does not feel safe is constant urgency. Rushing through meals. Rushing through workouts. Rushing through rest. When everything feels rushed, the body stays alert. Alert bodies do not release stored energy. They guard it. Another sign is fear-based decision-making. Eating out of fear of gaining weight. Exercising out of fear of losing progress. Restricting out of fear of losing control. Fear is a powerful threat signal. Even when behavior looks disciplined, the internal environment is tense. Safety does not mean comfort at all times. It means the body trusts that challenges are temporary and recovery is coming. It means effort is followed by rest. It means hunger is met rather than ignored. It means sleep is protected rather than sacrificed. When safety increases, subtle shifts happen first. Breathing becomes deeper. Digestion feels easier. Sleep becomes more restorative. Energy becomes steadier. These changes are often overlooked because they don't look like fat loss yet, but they are the foundation that makes fat loss possible. The body cannot be bullied into letting go of protection. It must be convinced that protection is no longer necessary. This conviction comes from repeated experiences of stability, nourishment, and rest. This is why people sometimes lose belly fat during vacations or calmer periods of life, even when eating more. The body feels safe. Meals are relaxed. Sleep is deeper. Pressure is lower. The nervous system downshifts. Fat loss follows the internal change, not the other way around. Threat-based approaches may produce short-term results, but they come at a cost. Burnout, rebound weight gain, increased stress, loss of trust in the body. Safety-based approaches take longer to show visible changes, but they create lasting shifts because the body is no longer fighting back. Fat loss is not a reward for suffering. It is a response to stability. When the body feels consistently supported, it no longer needs to cling to reserves. It begins to operate efficiently rather than defensively. Creating safety is not about doing nothing. It is about doing the right things in the right amounts. Eating enough, resting enough, moving with intention, letting go of constant self-surveillance, allowing the body to exist without being judged every moment. When the body no longer feels threatened by its environment or by the person living inside it, it begins to release what it was holding onto for protection, because survival no longer feels uncertain and energy no longer feels scarce, and the system finally recognizes that it is allowed to function from a place of balance rather than defense. Lowering stress is one of the most powerful yet underestimated factors in allowing the body to finally release stubborn belly fat. Many people focus almost entirely on food and exercise, believing fat loss is a mechanical process that only responds to calories and movement. What often gets ignored is the internal environment those choices exist within. When stress is high, the body resists change. When stress comes down, the body becomes more flexible, responsive, and willing to let go of stored protection. Stress affects the body at every level. It influences hormones, digestion, sleep, energy levels, and emotional resilience. When stress is constant, the body adapts to survive it. That adaptation includes holding on to fat, especially around the abdomen where vital organs are located. This fat is not there by accident. It's there because the body believes it's needed. Lowering stress doesn't mean eliminating all challenges or responsibilities. It means reducing the constant pressure the body feels to stay alert and prepared. Even small reductions in stress can shift the body out of survival mode. When survival mode turns off, fat loss becomes possible again. One of the first things that happens when stress decreases is improved nervous system regulation. Breathing becomes deeper. Muscle tension reduces. The body spends more time in a rest and repair state. This state is where fat burning, hormone balance, and tissue repair occur. Without it, progress remains blocked no matter how perfect the plan looks. Lower stress also improves sleep quality. Deeper sleep allows the body to reset stress hormones and repair itself. With better sleep, hunger signals normalize, cravings decrease, and energy becomes more stable. These changes support fat loss without requiring additional effort. Digestion improves as stress decreases. The body shifts out of fight or flight mode and into rest and digest mode. Nutrients are absorbed more efficiently. Bloating and discomfort reduce. The belly often appears flatter even before fat loss occurs because inflammation and water retention decrease. Lowering stress changes behavior in subtle but powerful ways. People become more patient. Food choices feel less urgent. Meals are eaten more mindfully. Movement feels enjoyable rather than forced. These changes reduce additional stress and create a positive feedback loop. When stress is high, the body clings to routine and protection. When stress lowers, the body becomes adaptable. It no longer feels the need to conserve energy at all costs. Fat storage becomes less necessary. Another important shift that happens with lower stress is improved insulin sensitivity. The body handles blood sugar more efficiently. Energy is used rather than stored. The belly area, which is sensitive to stress hormones, responds strongly to this change. Lower stress also reduces inflammation. Chronic stress promotes inflammation, which can contribute to a swollen, resistant midsection. As inflammation decreases, the body becomes more responsive to fat loss signals. Mental stress matters just as much as physical stress. Constant self-criticism, worry, and pressure keep the nervous system activated. When people begin to speak to themselves with more compassion and reduce unrealistic expectations, the body feels safer. That sense of safety is what allows fat release. Lowering stress often feels counterintuitive to people who are used to pushing. Slowing down can feel like giving up. But the body does not interpret rest as weakness. It interprets it as stability. People often notice that when they stop obsessing over belly fat, it begins to change. This isn't coincidence. Obsession itself is stressful. Letting go of constant monitoring reduces mental load, which lowers stress hormones. Lower stress doesn't produce instant visible results, but it creates the conditions for sustainable change. The body needs repeated experiences of calm to trust that it no longer needs protection. Over time, those experiences accumulate. Many people report that belly fat loss happens during periods when life feels more balanced, not during periods of extreme discipline. This pattern reflects the body's preference for safety over force. Lowering stress allows the body to respond to food and exercise more effectively. The same meals and workouts produce different results in a calmer body. Efficiency improves. Recovery improves. Fat loss becomes less of a struggle. The key is consistency, not perfection. Small daily practices that reduce stress matter more than occasional big efforts. Deep breathing, walking, pausing, disconnecting, sleeping, eating regularly. These actions may seem simple, but they are biologically powerful. When stress remains high, the body remains guarded. When stress lowers, the guard comes down. The belly, which has been a storage and protection site, begins to soften as the body realizes it no longer needs to prepare for constant threat. The release of belly fat is not a reward for discipline. It is a response to relief. When the body experiences relief consistently, it lets go of what it no longer needs to carry, because the environment has changed and the internal message has shifted from danger to safety and from survival to balance and trust in the system's ability to function without constant defense. Belly fat is often treated like a personal flaw, a visible sign that something is wrong with you, your habits, or your discipline. From a young age, people are taught to judge their bodies, especially their midsection, as a measure of success or failure. When belly fat doesn't respond to effort, the conclusion many people reach is that they are lazy, broken, weak, or lacking willpower. This belief becomes heavy, and that weight is often more damaging than the fat itself. In reality, belly fat is not a moral issue. It is not proof that you failed. It is feedback. The body is constantly communicating through physical signals, and belly fat is one of them. It reflects how the body has been coping with its environment, its stress load, its energy availability, and its sense of safety over time. When you understand this, the narrative shifts away from blame and toward awareness. The body does not store belly fat to punish you. It stores it to protect you. Every system in the body is designed around survival, not appearance. When conditions feel demanding, uncertain, or overwhelming, the body adapts. One of the adaptations is holding on to energy in a place that offers quick access and protection to vital organs. That adaptation is intelligent, even if it's frustrating. Personal failure implies choice. It implies that if you had just tried harder, things would be different. Belly fat does not operate on that logic. It responds to signals that are often outside conscious control. Chronic stress, emotional strain, poor sleep, underfueling, constant pressure, unresolved trauma, and overstimulation all influence how the body stores fat. These are not character flaws. They are life conditions. Many people have worked incredibly hard and still struggle with belly fat. They've exercised consistently, eaten carefully, followed plans, and sacrificed comfort. The fact that their belly hasn't changed does not erase that effort. It highlights that effort alone is not the missing piece. The body is responding to something deeper. Seeing belly fat as a signal invites a different question. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" the question becomes, "What has my body been dealing with?" That question opens space for compassion. It acknowledges that the body may have been under more pressure than you realized. Signals are not demands. The body isn't asking you to hate it or fight it harder. It's asking to be listened to. Belly fat can be a sign that stress has been high for a long time. It can be a sign that rest has been insufficient. It can be a sign that nourishment has been inconsistent. It can be a sign that the nervous system has not felt safe enough to relax. When people internalize belly fat as failure, they often respond with more punishment, more restriction, more intensity, more criticism. This reinforces the very conditions that caused the signal in the first place. The body hears the punishment as further threat and holds on even tighter. Understanding belly fat as communication changes the response. Instead of punishment, there is curiosity. Instead of shame, there is support. Instead of force, there is patience. These responses lower stress, which changes the signal being sent back to the body. The body is not trying to sabotage you. It is trying to keep you alive in the best way it knows how. When resources feel scarce or demands feel endless, holding on to energy is logical. When the environment softens, the body softens too. Many people notice that their relationship with their belly changes before their belly changes physically. When self-criticism decreases, tension decreases. When tension decreases, the abdomen relaxes. This is not imagined. The nervous system directly affects muscle tone, posture, digestion, and inflammation in the belly area. Belly fat often carries emotional weight as well. It can become the place where stress is held physically. Tightness, bloating, discomfort, and guarding are common. These sensations are signs of a body that has been bracing itself for a long time. Letting go of the note of failure allows the body to feel less judged. Judgment itself is stressful. Being watched, measured, and criticized keeps the nervous system alert. When that pressure eases, the body receives a powerful signal that it is no longer under constant evaluation. This does not mean ignoring health or abandoning goals. It means approaching change from a place of respect rather than resentment. Health improves when the body feels supported, not when it feels attacked. Every signal the body sends has a purpose. Hunger is a signal. Fatigue is a signal. Belly fat is a signal. Ignoring or shaming signals doesn't make them disappear. Understanding them does. People often fear that self-compassion will lead to complacency. In reality, it leads to regulation. Regulated systems function better. They adapt more efficiently. They don't cling to protection unnecessarily. When belly fat is seen as information rather than indictment, it becomes easier to address the real causes. Stress can be reduced. Sleep can be prioritized. Fuel can be improved. Pace can be adjusted. None of these changes come from shame. They come from listening. The body keeps score of long-term patterns, not short bursts of effort. Belly fat reflects cumulative experience. It reflects how often the body has felt rushed, deprived, overwhelmed, or unsafe. Changing it requires changing the experience, not the identity. You are not your belly fat. It is not a measure of your worth, your discipline, or your intelligence. It is a snapshot of how your body has been surviving. When you stop treating it as a personal failure, you stop adding another layer of stress to an already stressed system. That alone begins to change the internal environment. Bodies respond to kindness with cooperation. They respond to understanding with flexibility. They respond to safety with release. Belly fat does not need to be defeated. It needs to be understood, because once the body feels heard and supported, the signal it no longer needs to send gradually fades as the system adapts to a new environment where protection is no longer required and survival no longer feels uncertain.